All right, today we're going to unpack the global fight against sugar. We're going to follow the story from the tax on your soda all the way down into the reward circuits of your brain. Okay, so let's just dive right in. This is not some small niche health trend. Get this, more than 130 places around the world, we're talking entire countries and huge cities, have basically declared war on sugar by taxing sweet drinks. I mean, this is a massive, coordinated global movement that has totally reshaped the beverage industry. And it really makes you ask the question, what is driving this huge, widespread pushback against sugar? To figure that out, let's start with the big picture. The policies governments are actually putting in place and what they're trying to accomplish. The whole strategy behind these taxes is kind of like a one-two punch. First, they're meant to nudge us, the consumers, to maybe pick a healthier drink. And second, they put pressure on the companies themselves to innovate and change what they're selling. So, here's the million-dollar question. Do they actually work? Well, the data is in from a bunch of places, so let's take a look. Let's start with Mexico. They were one of the first big countries to do this, way back in 2014. They rolled out a tax on sugary drinks. And what happened next was a really dramatic shift in what people were buying. And the results were, well, they were huge. We're talking a 37% drop in the amount of sugary drinks people bought. And what's really important here is that the biggest changes were seen in lower-income households. The predictions are that this could prevent almost 250,000 cases of obesity over a decade. Now, over in the UK, they took a slightly different approach. They created a tiered system, which basically meant the more sugar in a drink, the more the manufacturer got taxed. And that, well, it lit a fire under the industry to change their recipes. And this shows a totally different way to succeed. Instead of just changing what we buy, the policy fundamentally changed what was being sold. Companies rushed to get their sugar levels down to avoid the tax, taking an incredible 45 million kilograms of sugar off the market every single year. And look, this isn't just a couple of isolated cases. From Mexico to the UK to South Africa, where they saw a 51% drop in sugar from sodas, the story is pretty much the same. These taxes are having a real impact. So all this intense pressure from governments, plus a growing demand from us shoppers for healthier options, has totally transformed the beverage aisle. I mean, it is a whole new world out there. As the classic sugary sodas start falling out of favor, a whole new generation of drinks is rising up to take their place. People are calling them healthy dupes, drinks that try to taste like the ones we love, but, with a way better nutritional profile. A perfect example of this is a brand called Olipop. They market themselves as a prebiotic soda that's good for your gut, and they're not subtle about it. They make low-sugar versions of famous flavors like their Ridge Rush, which is a pretty clear take on Mountain Dew. And when you look at them side by side, the difference is just wild. A classic soda might have around 40 grams of sugar. Its new, healthier counterpart, just 4 grams. That's literally 10 times less sugar for a similar taste. All of this, the taxes, the dupes, the market shifts, it all gets to the real heart of the matter. Why is sugar such a huge public health target anyway? To understand the why behind this whole war, we have to get into the really intense scientific debate about addiction. I mean, you hear the term sugar addiction thrown around all the time, right? But is it a real thing? Is it a clinical addiction like we think of with drugs? What does the science actually say? So this quote here from a big scientific review pretty much sums it up. It's still a very open question. Researchers are actively trying to figure out if our powerful cravings for sugar can really, truly be compared to a substance addiction. The whole debate really boils down to two competing ideas. On one side, you have the food addiction theory. That's the idea that the substance itself, sugar, is addictive, just like a drug. On the other side, you have the eating addiction theory. This says it's the behavior of eating that becomes compulsive, kind of like a gambling addiction. The problem isn't the cards, it's the act of gambling. So to get any closer to an answer, we have to go deeper, way deeper, all the way down to the level of our brain chemistry to see what's actually happening in our reward system. Okay, check out this diagram from a recent study. It's fascinating. It compares side by side how drugs and plain old sucrose, table sugar, affect the brain. You can see it's broken down into an early stage and a late stage of exposure. We're going to walk through this because it shows the key differences between the two. So, in the early stages, both things give you that pleasurable dopamine hit. But here's the first huge difference. Drugs cause powerful, strong, and long-lasting changes to the brain's wiring. The effects from sugar, though, are described as transient. That means they're much more temporary. They fade pretty quickly. And this is the most critical distinction right here. Over the long term, drugs can literally rewire the brain to make someone compulsively seek them out, even when there are terrible consequences. When it comes to sugar, the research just doesn't show that same kind of compulsive, punishment-resistant behavior. The evidence just isn't there. So because of these really significant differences in the brain, a lot of scientists are now arguing that we should stop using the term food addiction. Instead, they're proposing eating addiction because it frames the problem much more accurately as a behavioral issue, not a substance-based one. So that leaves us with this really fascinating puzzle. The world is fighting a policy war against sugar like it's a dangerous substance, but the science seems to suggest our brains don't actually get hooked on the substance itself. It makes you wonder, is this global war on sugar really about fighting an addiction, or is it about using policy to help us manage a behavior that we just can't seem to control on our own?